The sun was sinking low across the open plains, spilling gold through the canvas of the wagon like heaven itself had paused to watch the two souls sitting inside. And though the world outside stretched empty and endless, inside that wagon everything felt unbearably close. His heartbeat, her trembling breath, the dust drifting in warm amber light as if time dared not move too fast between them. Elias Carter, a man carved by silent storms and years of doing everything alone, sat stiff-backed at first, trying to pretend he didn't feel the heat of her thigh brushing, his or her fingers slowly curling over her skirt as if she were hiding the tremble in them, while Clara Weston, gentle, bruised by life but unwilling to stay broken, watched him with eyes too full of hope for a woman who had spent so much of her life being overlooked, unwanted, and told to wait her turn. She could hear the horses breathing outside, the creaking of the wheels cooling after a long day's ride, yet all she truly heard was her own heartbeat hammering against her, ribs like a fist begging to be let out, begging to choose something, someone for once, instead of being chosen by no one. Elias avoided her gaze at first, pretending to check the reins, pretending to adjust the small lantern swinging beside them, but even pretending became impossible when she placed her hand over his, soft but desperate, the kind of touch that asked a question without speaking it. His breath hitched, not because he hadn't been touched before, but because no one had ever touched him like he mattered, like someone had finally seen past the rough hands and worn boots and quiet voice, past the scars on his knuckles and the weight of loneliness in his shoulders. And when he finally looked at her, really looked, her lashes were wet in the orange glow, not from sadness but from the kind of fear that only comes from wanting something too much. "Elias," she whispered, and even the wind outside seemed to still itself, as though the entire prairie leaned in to hear what came next. Her voice cracked, soft and trembling, the kind of trembling that carried years of secrets and swallowed words. "I can't keep pretending I don't feel this. Not when you look at me like that. Not when every mile brings us closer and I find myself wishing for things I have no right to wish for." And Elias, who had never been good with words, who had spent his life speaking more with actions than confessions, felt the world tilt inside him because he had been looking at her every day since she climbed into his wagon, dusty and exhausted, asking him for a place to travel, a place to breathe, a place to be something other than unwanted. And he had tried. God help him, he had truly tried not to want her. His jaw clenched as he swallowed, as though holding back the entire truth of his life. And when he finally answered, his voice was so low she felt it more than heard it. "Clara, you don't know what you're asking," he murmured, fingers tightening over hers even though he should have pulled away. "I've spent years building walls you shouldn't want to climb." But Clara shook her head, inching closer until the soft fabric of her blouse brushed his vest, until she could smell the faint leather and warm earth clinging to his skin, until her breath mingled with his in that small space between longing and fear. "I don't want your walls," she whispered, voice raw with truth. "I want you. The man who listens when I speak, who shields me from the cold nights, who pretends not to notice when I fall asleep against his shoulder. The man who's been alone too long and pretends he prefers it. I want the man sitting right here in front of me, trying so hard not to want me back." And Elias inhaled sharply as though the confession struck him in the chest, because everything she said, the longing, the fear, the quiet noticing, was exactly what he felt but didn't know how to say. Their hands tightened together, knuckles brushing, breath mingling, the lantern flickering shadows across their faces, shadows that danced like hesitant promises. And then Clara leaned closer, heart pounding so loudly she feared he could hear it, eyes shining with the kind of bravery outside born the prairie burned gold as the last light dipped below the horizon. But inside the wagon, two souls sat trembling, hearts pounding, hope rising like a flame that refused to die. And as Elias leaned his forehead to hers, their breaths mingling in the hush of the coming night, the world seemed to whisper around them that some loves don't wait to be chosen. They choose you first. And as the light faded and their fingers intertwined tighter, deeper, as though binding a promise neither dared speak aloud yet, Clara closed her eyes and whispered again, softer this time, not out of desperation but out of truth. "Elias, choose me." And the night took her words and carried them into the dark, while Elias finally, silently, let himself ache for her with no restraint. From desire, from finally choosing herself, and in a voice barely more than a broken plea, she whispered the words that shattered the last of the space between them. "Make me yours in this wagon, please. I don't want to keep longing for you in silence." The words hung there, fragile and trembling, and Elias closed his eyes, jaw clenched, fighting himself, fighting the past that taught him to stay quiet, unseen, unloved. But when he opened them again, something inside him had cracked, the fear, the caution, all of it falling away, beneath the weight of her truth, and he lifted her, hand to his chest where his heart hammered, hard and uneven beneath her palm. "Clara," he said hoarsely, "you don't know how long. I've been trying not to hear you say that." And she broke softly, beautifully, because sometimes the most powerful thing in the world is not the kiss, not the touch, but the moment someone finally admits they feel the same.